Recently, Gigabyte sent over their RTX 4060 low profile, and I wanted to see what the deal was with this card, and I wanted to build the smallest PC possible. And then I remembered, what's the smallest case that we've ever covered here on the channel? And that reminded me that I had the Velka 3 in storage, so I went and fished it out. Now, the reason for this is because when we reviewed the Velka 3, GPUs weren't as powerful as they are now. So let's see what the deal is. But before that, here's a word from today's video sponsor. This video is brought to you by VIPSCDKey.com. You install Windows and you see the watermark of death. You don't need to fork out a couple $100 for a key. You can grab one from today's video sponsor. From VIPSCDKey.com for a tenth of the price, and you can use our code GEAR to get 25% off. How good's that? That takes that already cheap Windows key and makes it even cheaper. You place your order, bingo bango, you've got your key on your orders page, you chuck that key into the activation screen, and you're good to go. No more watermark of death. Use code GEAR for 25% off, link in the description. On with the video. It's been a while since I built with the Velka 3 and I forgot about some of the limitations this case has. And if you're looking at buying this GPU for a tiny small form factor machine, like there's small form factor and then there's this thing, right? First of all, I noticed, I didn't even research the size of the GPU before building that. This GPU is technically too long for this case, but I didn't put these brackets back in the case to help with clearance. These add a little bit of a gap onto the end of where the GPU sits. So I can slide it back in and kind of give you guys an idea, right? So this here, I'll lose about 1 millimeter of clearance, but without that, there's this tiny bit of clearance so the side panel can be put back on the case, right? And I found that because the front panel of the case is so solid that it didn't lose any of its structural rigidity. The other thing with the Velka 3 is it's really picky with GPUs that are supposed to fit as well, because you only have a 2-slot maximum. So I felt like it was worth showing that this card, which is slightly under 2-slot, does fit perfectly in terms of the width of the card. I hope that makes sense. But the length is a little bit tricky. I mean, you can risk it if you like you can see that it's in here, no problem. The other consideration is the PCIe power connector for this card is on the end of the card. So if you're not comfortable bending the cables that are plugged into your GPU, this can be an issue, but I'm here for science, guys. I wanted to test this and I wanted to see what the story was with all of this fitting. The keen-eyed out there may have noticed that when I put this front panel back on, I did one side at a time. The reason for that is the front panel doesn't flex, so it doesn't really matter if I loosely do up screws on one side and then kind of jam it in together. And this is really one thing that you have to remember when you're going sub 5 liter with these small form factor builds. Not everything is going to fit perfect. That's kind of the point, right? It's supposed to be as compact as possible. There's a lot of tolerance in how much you can, let's say, force things into a case without damaging them. And luckily for this GPU, the limiting factor for the length is not the power connector because it's recessed. It's actually the plastic shroud. If you wanted to be a bit smarter than me, you could Dremel off the end of the card slightly and you'd be fine. You would be okay. Hardware like the power supply, the GPU, the motherboard, the cooler, and all that stuff, if you want to know the clearances of this case and all of the measurements, I covered this in our original Velka 3 review, so make sure you go and check that out after this video if you're more interested in this case. But also, the 12400 is a good choice for a PC with these specs. Look at the thermals on your screen right now, right? It doesn't get too hot, it doesn't thermal throttle, it is warm. For this little Noctua cooler, it's not gonna overwhelm it. My initial thought was, let's try the 14600K. It was so far out of spec for this cooler that it just didn't make sense to do that. And if you're building this small, there are a lot of sacrifices you have to make. You will not be able to go top end unless you use something like the 7800X3D. Now, when we did our initial video of this, I think we used a 3060 Ti, and now we're in the 40 series with the 4060, and I think the performance, as you're seeing with these quick benchmarks on your screen right now, compared to our 12900K test bench when we tested the MSI 4060 when that came out, you can see that the results for this tiny little low profile card are within spitting distance. So I would say that realistically, even with the 12400 and this GPU, you're not leaving that much performance on the table. It's like 1 or 2 frames here or there, and to be honest, it's within a margin of error. So I'm pretty impressed with the performance of this tiny little card. One thing that I will mention that I didn't measure, but you know, it's subjective. I mean, most people wear headphones when they game, so they don't really care about how loud the computer is most of the time, but this system's pretty quiet. And that was a bit of a surprise to me. This GPU is very quiet, which is also another big surprise to me. So good work, Gigabyte. You kept the noise down on this tiny little 4060. And yeah, I'm impressed with this little card. Let me know what you think of this tiny little 3.9 liter build. I'm almost tempted to keep this together for our new like TV gaming PC, but I'm concerned that the 4060 is a little bit underpowered for the games that I like to play at 4K on our big old TV. But let me know, please let me know. And let me know if there's anything you guys want to see me put this in. The reason why I did this as well was, again, like this is one of the smallest cases you can buy. And we had to know if it could go into one of the smallest. And technically it does, but it doesn't at the same time. That's just about going to do it. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peek, we seek, and watch a video up here. It's up here. There's one up here. I mean, it's somewhere. Maybe it's like on top of the computer. Yep. Oh, is that it? Is that it?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. Did I say everything?